and welcome to Book Talks with Sandy. I am Sandy Sanders. I am your host and creator of the Book Talks with Sandy platform, where we are part of the Coffee Conversations with Sandy. And this evening, we are continuing the author tour with the amazing authors of the upcoming soon-to-be released book, anthology book project by Dr. Bridget C. Williams and the contributing authors. We have been listening and talking and hearing their incredible stories. The book is volume 2 of Courage in Cannabis, and this is the Triumph Stories. And so I do want to just ask that you all just get it out, share it out, send it out to your community. You know what I tell you, that you are coaches of coaches, leaders of leaders, and you have a tribe of people. And so what we're going to do is do our intro one more time, and then we will be introducing these amazing, amazing authors and just sharing with you a little bit about this upcoming book. I'm super excited. We've had 2 interviews so far with them. So I hope everyone had an amazing day. And we are now back to part 3 of our 3-part interview series with the contributing authors of Courage in Cannabis, the visionary author herself, Dr. Bridget C. Williams. And so if you guys just stay tuned, and then we'll be bringing on our contributing authors. You guys go ahead and share it out. Tag about 5 people, okay? All right, and I'll be talking with you shortly. Yes, and again, welcome to Book Talks with Sandy. This is our platform for authors, anthology book projects, and most of all, I say that it is for you. Why do I say that? Because you just might be looking for a good book to read. Tonight, we are going to be talking with the authors and contributing authors of the soon-to-be released anthology that is called Courage in Cannabis. We have several of the authors. You all have been meeting them over the past few days, or a few interviews that I've been doing, and we have been talking about cannabis. This is a group of authors, Triumph Stories. It is soon to be released right on the heels of the #1 bestseller, Volume 1, Courage in Cannabis. So this is led by the award-winning physician, entrepreneur, and author, yes, Dr. Bridget Cole Williams. And now what I'm going to do, yes, let's give her yay, yes, indeed. Oh, there she is.
Hi, how are you?
I am great. Listen, I was flying to my eye. I'm still rabbit sitting and dog sitting.
Well, we can all just take a breath and, settle in, right?
Yes, we're going to settle in and listen, Dr. Williams, you have had some amazing authors to come through the past couple of interviews. I'm so impressed. I mean, everyone is so different. And each one has left a mark in my memory, my thoughts. So when the book is released, I'm like, okay, I got to get to her chapter. So tonight is no different. This book, Courage in Cannabis, is an anthology project of 40 authors and contributors. It is the robust edition in this series. It's going to challenge your assumption and enlighten your point. And we start right there. So, Dr. Williams, how are you doing today?
Great. I'm happy to be here. It's always great to see you. And I'm excited to hear the conversation with our authors today.
Yes, same here. And we're just going to go ahead and dive on in. I want these fabulous individuals to go ahead and introduce themselves. While we're doing that, I'm going to actually start with Amy. We have contributing author Amy Carter, and we have Frederica Easley. We have Gerald Moore and Uwe Belsching. I got it right. Thank you. Okay. Amy, hi, and welcome to Book Talks with Sandy.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And tell me a little bit about who you are and your
My,
contribution with cannabis and how you met Dr. Bridget.
okay. My name is Amy Carter, and I live in Michigan. I was the parent petitioner that petitioned the state to get autism as a qualifying condition for medical marijuana. And that was back in 2018. I've been medicating my son since he was 9 years old. He is now 16. And
Mhm.
I met Dr. Bridget at one of the rallies that we were having at the Capitol.
Oh, great. Okay. And so it was a rally in at the Capitol in Michigan that you met Dr. Bridget.
Oh,
And
great. Okay. And so it was a rally in the Capitol.
I think I got it back. It's okay. But so that's how you guys met.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, good. Federica Easley. Yes, if you will, come on and introduce yourself. Let us know who you are.
Hey, so thank you for having me. Hey, Dr. Bridget. So I'm Frederica McCleary Easley. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York, currently residing in Austin, Texas. My relationship with cannabis is a complicated one, but I think is one that people can relate to. I am a product of the DARE era. And so I grew up with a lot of friends and family around me consuming, but having drunk the Kool-Aid in terms of this is your brain on drugs, that whole cracked egg thing.
Yeah.
And so had a very judgmental perspective of it until about 28. And it was at that time where I started, doing research and thinking for myself and making my own, kind of judgments about the plant. And honestly, having been a drinker, a heavy drinker, college, things of that nature, and realizing, some of the positions that put you in versus actually consuming cannabis. So it's been a journey, right? It's a healing journey for me. I now work in cannabis. I've been working in cannabis for a couple of years. So I work with the people's ecosystem. I am the director of strategic initiatives, and I analyze policy, specifically with the lens of equity. So I look for areas where language can be strengthened and or where it repurposes harm, whether it's intentional or non-intentional. So a little about me.
Awesome. Well,
And
thank you.
I met Dr. Bridget at a conference. We met at a conference in Detroit.
Yes,
That's the first
absolutely.
time we
Yeah.
met.
And then we found out that we have like mutual old friends from like the most odd situations. So if that's not the glue that keeps you together, I don't know what is. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
Wow, that's amazing. I love hearing how the connection, whether it's at a conference, a convention, striking up a conversation, or you look up and you see her on social media all over. Yes, you can find Dr. Bridget on TikTok. You can find her on Instagram. You can find her on Facebook. Any social media, you're going to find Dr. Bridget. Come on, if you will, Gerald Moore Jr., and introduce yourself to us.
Yes, I'm Gerald Moore Jr., originally from upstate New York. I lived in most of my adolescence was in the DC area, the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia. I came to Ohio via a football scholarship at Ohio University. I decided to stay here after trying out for the NFL in 2013 with the Oakland Raiders. And cannabis has been a part of my life pretty much my whole life. I've found out more information the older I got. But I'm an 80s baby, 89 millennial. So, I'm like Frederica. I was born in that DARE era where, everybody's telling you how bad it is. And I started consuming when I was about 16 years old. And I realized that it made me feel amazing. So I was kind of like, why is everybody telling me all these bad things when it's really making me feel good? And I was an elite athlete. So I kind of understood my body already and what my body really needed. I was already training and stuff like that. So cannabis has been a part of my life. I really started speaking out about it in 2019. Once I got my medical card, once Ohio passed legalization, I felt comfortable enough to actually talk about it because before then I had never really talked about it and people didn't know I consumed. And so I've just been busy being an advocate, speaking, yelling from the hills and on social media, talking about it. And I actually I forget how we met, but I put on a conference called Black in Cannabis in Ohio because I was tired of not seeing any Black people vocalizing, what they believe need to happen in the cannabis industry, especially here in Ohio. So I brought together some experts and put them on a panel, and we had a great conversation.
Awesome. Well, I like to definitely, we're going to have you to expound a little bit more as to the reason why you found it necessary. You mentioned one thing is that the Black community and really speaking out about it, but I'd like to hear a little bit more in regard to being a millennial. And then, of course, then I call it me. I'm older. I'm in my 60s, and we just call it just smoking weed and pot back in the day. So, Dr. Bridget, no, I have her to enlighten me and educate me on this. So, thank you so much, Mr. Uwe. Yes, come on and say hi to us. Tell us a little bit about who you are and your relation with cannabis. How did that come about?
Dr. B and myself met at a book signing in San Diego not too long ago.
Wow.
And, as you can tell by my name, perhaps I was born and raised in Germany and came to the San Francisco Bay Area after signing up for medical school, but there was a 2-year waiting list. So I figured I'd go see the world and travel. Came to San Francisco, fell in love with the city, and kind of never left. Now, I couldn't afford going to med school here in the United States. It was just too expensive. And so somebody suggested, Uwe, why don't you go and try the Stanford program on paramedicine to become a paramedic? I tried it out. I loved it. I got hired by the San Francisco Department of Public Health straight out of the university. And so my contacts with any drug, including cannabis, had to do with the kind of 911 calls they generated.
Yeah.
Not too much later, a few years later, we got absorbed into the fire department. The entire paramedic division got absorbed. And I had a lot of free time because I was on a fireman's schedule. And so I decided to go back to university and pursue my academic career in addition to working as a paramedic, and then eventually ended up getting a research degree in qualitative methodologies, and I used that to flesh out the complex science that underpins what's now been termed the cannabinoid health sciences. And so I've been doing research and writing on the subject for about 13 years or so. And I'm just astonished at how much the plant offers and continues to offer on a literally weekly basis. There are about 10 trials published on a daily basis, that half of them which with potential clinical relevance. And so it's been a passion of mine ever since I saw what the plant can do for a great number of patients, especially those suffering from chronic conditions.
Well, and that is where we're going to home in our conversation. Dr. Bridget, if y'all allow me, I just want to have a conversation briefly with her, because Dr. Bridget is known for her beginning. She is well sought out to my audience. She is very well sought out for her knowledge of the cannabis plant. She did over 20 plus years of research and really digging deep. I'm not reading her bio. This is just from my knowledge. You all, I know her bio is probably way more elaborate than what I'm sharing with you. But just getting to know her, interviewing her that one time left an impression on me is that her passion for her patients, and no longer having to write prescriptions and medicine and saying, what can I do? I remember, Dr. Bridget, you and I, we had this conversation, is that your patients were coming to you and they were in pain. So take us back to the moment of that particular patient, unnamed, and take us there, and we'll go further into our interview.
Absolutely. So I think, Frederica, I really kind of grew up in a space where cannabis was an absolute negative, right? And I had experiences in my youth where my best friend's cousin smoked a lot, always smelled a pot, and she was a wild, wild, wild woman, right? And so as a kid, I was like, no, I'm not having anything to do with that. And of course, as I grew up and then learned about cannabis, I really realized that it wasn't cannabis that had her behavior, but she was bipolar. And she didn't even get diagnosed until she was in her 40s. And she was really this teenage girl doing the very best that she could to medicate to feel normal. So that in itself, when I finally figured that out, really hit me, because I was like, that's one girl that did not get help until she was in her 40s and was really utilizing this medicinally, whether she knew it or not. And so, but up until that point, I had a pretty dismissive, I wouldn't say strong opinion, but very dismissive about cannabis in general. And so I was working with patients at the time. I was at the Cleveland Clinic. I was frustrated with all just diagnosis pharmaceuticals and pills, and my patients were frustrated. And I started actually working with patients to help them get off of their medications. I put them on my lunch hour. I put them at the end of the day. I got to know them. We learned what did wellness mean. And when they finally got to a place where it was time for change, we started working with diet and exercise. We started taking patients off of medications every 6 to 8 weeks. One of these people was a woman who had survived breast cancer and was now a new diabetic. And she really did not want to be on all these meds and go through all this. And so I was helping her get off of her medications, and she asked me about cannabis. And keep in mind, at this point, I'm still very much like, this is ridiculous. Why are we even talking about this? So I started pulling up articles to tell her she was wrong. And in the course of it, I was seeing that there was research and there was information out there. You know, it wasn't extensive, but it was out there about how it was medicinal and how it could be used for various things. And so I went back to her and I was like, I'm totally misunderstanding this. And together she started making edibles and smoking. I was learning about dosing and titration. I saw her health transform in a way that none of the pharmaceuticals I was giving could do. And that was really the transformational moment for me, as far as not just looking at cannabis as an option, but really questioning, what do we understand about pharmaceuticals and medicine? And that maybe we need to open up our viewpoint about how do we treat patients and hear what they had to say.
That is phenomenal. And that's the impression that, you patient first.
Patient first, yeah.
Patient first. And all of this other stuff, but patient first. And it was, you brought us and you bring us into that conversation. And then that represents, like you said, the young lady, friend of yours who discovered that she's bipolar. It was all the way up until she was the age 40 before she was able to get the kind of treatment and help. And just think, she's one probably out of, we don't, and
so many.
So here we are. You have the #1 bestseller, volume 1. I believe one of the most impressive authors that left me was the author that not only did the benefit of cannabis help her, but it was her mother. And her name escapes me, but it's both of them. And her mother, I believe, was in her 80s or 90s, and blessed. And so
Dorothy, I think it was Dorothy. Yes.
Left, oh my goodness, a major impression on me. Then we had the lady who has the farm up in Asheville, North Carolina. So I'm meeting, this is a little bit different, this particular volume. We're meeting individuals that are more in the industry, but yet they do have their stories. Yes. And so you all that are tuning in, yes, this is volume 2. And volume 2, just so that you know, this book is going to be sharing stories with individuals that in this edition, the authors sharing stories regarding addiction, trauma, diabetes, autism, brain injury, entrepreneurship, athletics, the legacy stories, and much more. And so we're going to go ahead and start. I was really intrigued by, Amy, your initial introduction as you talked about your son. And there are terms, you all in the audience, there's terms and things that will have them to kind of help us to understand. Again, consumption, we know, is that you're ingesting. And so then you have the others, whether you're smoking it, whether you're using oils and things of that nature. So we're going to go and talk about some of those things a little bit later. But I want to introduce visionary author, or the visionary author we know is Dr. Bridget C. Williams, but one of the contributing authors, which is Amy Carter. And if you all will put your information, if you do have websites, go ahead to the private chat so that we can let our audience know a little bit more about you. Amy, come on, and we're just going to step back and allow you to share just a brief conversation, kind of about a minute, maybe a minute and a half, that you can share with us. Yeah, because we want people to buy the book, and we're going to be talking about that in just a moment. But go ahead.
All right. So my story started out, my son was diagnosed when he was 2.5 years old with autism, ADHD, and oppositional defiant disorder. And he was very violent and aggressive for several years. And I tried everything, the gluten-free diets and the no red dye and, various different therapies. And I really consumed myself with surrounding myself around other parents that had children with autism. And I served on several different boards and did a lot of community work. And it wasn't until I found cannabis that things really, truly got better. We tried a lot of different pharmaceuticals, and I was still holding him down like 8 times a day in violent episodes. We've had over 100 police encounters. We were on the Dr. Phil show in 2014. My son's been hospitalized over 300 days of his life. I'm happy to report that he does use cannabis now. And he is able to process information. His IQ has increased. His cognitive impairment has diminished. He's doing the best he's ever done. He's 16 years old now, and he talks about his future. And he is really like a night and day different kid. So we had quite the success with cannabis, and that's why I wanted to be a part of the book. I felt for a lot of years, I didn't know, if I was going to find a solution to give him the quality of life that I knew he deserved. Not only did it give him a quality of life, it gave my daughter and I a quality of life. So it helped all around.
Okay, I will mute. Thank you so much for sharing. And as you began to share, looking for an answer when, and I'm pretty sure you speak to other mothers, and when you made that decision, like, we've tried everything else, but let's go ahead. Was it that type of decision? Is that, hey, we've tried everything else, nothing seems to be working, and you did your research and decided to go this route?
Yes, it was actually pretty scary, to be honest. We had CPS got involved, Child Protective Services, and it actually got to a point with Jaden to where they were going to force me to sign my rights over because they were worried he was going to hurt me. And, it was kind of like, what? I gotta try this. And I ended up getting him his card for history of seizures, nausea, and migraines. Mm-hmm. And once he started taking it, I realized that it helped his autism. It helped his aggression and his behaviors. And it just, it was like night and day.
Really? That's awesome. That is awesome. Those of you that are tuning in, yes, we're back here on Tuesday night with Book Talks with Sandy. We are still in the midst of our quarterly book tour called I Have a Story. And we have the visionary author and the contributing authors of a soon to be released anthology called Cannabis, Courage in Cannabis. And these are the Triumph Stories. There's over 40 authors that are a part of this anthology. Dr. Bridget is the visionary of this book. And you're just hearing when a parent that has made a decision and found amazing results from her son and getting the medical card and using cannabis. And so that's a great story. So we look forward to reading more. At this time, we're going to have Frederica, and she will be introducing herself and sharing how she's going to be contributing to the book, Courage in Cannabis.
Also, so I am actually contributing a spark. And so I think of the sparks as interludes. Those pieces of, maybe a little talk, a little this, a little that, like the glue between some of the stories. And so it can kind of lead you in transition. So I am very humbled to be able to do that. Very thankful to Dr. Bridget. I read the first one as you did, and I was floored by the vulnerability and the offerings of the authors. And so I hope to add something to this second edition, to this rendition. And basically, one of the things that my spark will be speaking to specifically is the silent harm that is often done or has often occurred due to cannabis prohibition. The mother just spoke about trying everything, getting to that point where she was willing to, last resort, right, to try this. But there are so many people, Black, Latinx, Indigenous, who have been a part of communities that were disparately impacted by cannabis prohibition, by the war on drugs, which was actually successful. People say that the war on drugs failed, but it didn't fail. It actually did what it was intended to do. If you go back and look at the history, it was meant to target Black, Latinx, and Indigenous people and to vilify them, which is why we had a change in the name from cannabis to marijuana in the first place. So the whole PR program around this plant was masterful, and it did what it needed to do. And so there's so many people, because our medical systems, our healthcare systems are systemically and institutionally biased. There's so many of us who are suffering and don't have the diagnosis. As Dr. Bridget said, her friend who is bipolar, everyone doesn't get diagnosed. And a lot of people over the years, over decades, have consumed because they know that this plant helps them to feel better. And so we're in this stage now where many states have decriminalized and they have regulated in order to get tax funding, but cannabis is still illegal. It's still a Schedule 1. And so there is still that stigma there. There is still that issue there. And now, from President Biden, there's been an issuance of, we have to do the research. Well, the reality is that, yes, there's so much that has yet to be tapped into in terms of what this plant can do, the benefits of this plant. But the reality is that at one point in time in our history, cannabis was used medically, and it was prescribed. There is research that already exists. Cannabis is something that many communities use within their ceremonies, so there is an understanding of cannabis that was rejected and that is now being kind of pushed to be looked into again, if you will. And so what we want to make sure is that in the process of doing this research, in the process of regulating, in the process of descheduling, decriminalizing, and things of that nature, people in communities who were impacted by policies and by over policing, that they are not forgotten. And that doesn't matter if they, want to actually get into the business as an entrepreneur or not, but that those communities and that individuals are not forgotten, because cannabis prohibition in some way, shape, or form has touched every part of a community, through over policing. Once you have a felony, and a lot of felonies were issued based on consumption, and not selling, but you become a second-class citizen. That impacts where you can live. That impacts where your opportunities for education. That impacts your opportunities for employment. Every part of your life is impacted once you are deemed a second-class citizen. And so there are many who are still suffering from that today, and who are actually still in jail, still serving time for something that others are making money from. So it's a little bit of my energy I bring to wanting to kind of ground us in, yes, this plant is amazing, and there's healing, but there are groups that need to be remembered.
And remembered as well. And like you said, is to be well educated.
Oh, you're muted.
When you said spark, I was like, okay, that's where we're going. Dr. Bridget, you did something a little different here. Come on and tell me.
I did. So we, with the last book, we had our 18 authors that shared their stories, and it was our general book. So there's stories from all different walks of life, and we're doing another general book. And I know that after this book, we're probably going to go more into themes and much more directed. And I knew there were so many incredible people that I wanted to get into this book, because the next time we have a general book might be actually a couple of years from now. So not only that, but the Sparks are really some of the most prominent voices that I've encountered in the cannabis space. And so we have our featured authors. Obviously, we have our foreword, but we have these Sparks, which are these powerhouse voices that in the last 2 years, as I've traveled the country and really met people in this space, like Frederica is humble, but incredibly powerful. And
I believe it.
And so her presence, her voice, her influence in this space really required her, where I'm honored for her to participate, but really required her to be a spark so that she could be that interlude as we tell all these stories.
Got it. Well, and it's kind of like the thread in between the thread. Yes. And so this is incredible. I went back and I'm looking at the release, and I said, that's what she's talking about.
Yeah.
So you have attorneys in here. I met the young lady who was
Natasha.
Yes, Natasha on Saturday. So again, this volume has a different flow to it.
Yes.
In addition to the incredible stories, Tanika that I met on last evening shared her experience. And so you all that are listening, we do want to take a moment, because Uwe, I'm going to bring you in next. I just want to share my screen so our audience will know just a little bit of who this amazing woman is. And we are just going to share that Dr. Bridget. Yes, indeed. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Dr. Bridget Williams from Greenhouse, the only medical cannabis card and coaching clinic in Ohio. We provide medical cannabis cards, education all around Ohio, as well as life and wellness coaching to reclaim your wellness.
Sandy, you're on mute.
Right, there we go. There it is. Yeah. Reclaiming your wellness. That is so amazing, because we're living in a world, I think before COVID, and then COVID hit, a lot of things were happening in our mind, in our body, and just in life in general. And so introducing something that I believe that brings great value to an individual in their health, in their entrepreneurship, as well as because we're meeting farmers and the farmer thing and yes, that all really, really impressed me on yesterday. Well, Uwe, come on and talk to us a little bit. Share with us who you are and as you mentioned, how you met our visionary author here, Dr. Bridget. But come on and share your contribution to the book.
So before Uwe starts, first of all, I want to highlight the fact that Uwe is actually one of our featured authors.
Okay.
Because he's humble as well. All of these people are way too humble. But he actually authors the Cannabis Health Index, which is which I consider really the Bible of cannabis research and information.
Okay.
And so because he's going to downplay himself, so I have to do this.
You better really tell me who he is.
Exactly, because he's going to downplay all that. But he literally writes the Bible when it comes to the research, and his journey into cannabis and to be able to provide that type of information for us is really unique. And it's what I go to when I'm looking for what the studies have shown. And he has an online version as well. But okay, I'll let him speak for himself.
So before we go further, so that would, okay, and before he comes on, so this is where an individual can get the definitions, what certain words mean, and is that what you're telling me as well?
Well, I'll let him explain it, but it's taking the research information and applying it in a way so that we know what to do with our patients.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, Uwe. She did.
Thank you, Dr. B, for the nice plug. Maybe I'll start by saying that in the years or so that I've been doing research and writing in and about our favorite plant, I've come to realize that the reason why cannabis works so well for so many different type of patient populations is because it affects the body and the mind in such a way as to support and fortify the body's capacity for self-healing. Fact is that the right type of cannabis, given at the right dose and matched to each individual's unique needs, will do so primarily in two ways. One, it will induce a deep sense of relaxation, and two, it will work towards establishing homeostasis in all organ systems. If we look a little deeper, why cannabis works so very well for so many different type of patients is we need to look at the common underlying pathologies or the reason that most chronic conditions share. And that has to do with chronic stress, chronic mental emotional stress, chronic oxidative damage, chronic inflammation, and chronic pain. And right now, if you were to go to the largest repository of scientific data, PubMed, and you were to do a search on studies related to each of these four components that I just listed, you'll find a plethora, you'll find an abundance of studies clearly showing that a number of cannabis constituents are potent anti-inflammatory, are potent analgesics, are potent in their antioxidant capacity, and of course, has the capacity to induce a deeply relaxed state. Now, here's the interesting part. Most people don't know this, but do you know that the human body actually makes its own version of cannabis? And that system that regulates the body's own version of cannabis is responsible for our capacity for resilience and well-being. And it's connected to our body's capacity to create and maintain balance or equilibrium or homeostasis, as we call it in medicine. And so as we become older, our endocannabinoid system, which is the name for this system, becomes out of whack. It becomes a little out of balance. And that is one of the reasons why when we are older, we're not as resilient as we used to be in comparison to our younger selves. Yeah. And this is where cannabis or cannabinoid-based therapeutics can come in so very beautifully to compensate for the lack of our own innate ability to create balance and to recover from illness and to modulate any potential stressors that we may encounter. And so when Dr. B asked me to do a contribution to the book, I was zooming in and focusing in on a new field of research. And the insights out of this new field of research looks at food components, for example, that support the body's own capacity to balance the cannabis constituents that are a part and parcel of our natural and biological inheritance, if you will. And so in states or in counties or countries where access is still pretty limited or not available at all, there are now specific things that we can use to target this balancing system that becomes weaker as we age by literally using not just cannabis constituents. So if we don't have access to them or they're hard to get, we can literally use other food components or specific activities to support our innate capacity through this system that lies at the core of our capacity to thrive. And so it's fascinating to see that, say, for example, turmeric or echinacea actually support the very system that cannabis is a brother or a sister to. And so it's very exciting to see how many other food items or herbs or nutraceuticals we can add to our healthcare regimen to support what we as younger selves take for granted. And so that is what I'm focusing on in terms of contributing to Courage in Cannabis.
Dr. Bridget, he said a lot. I'm going to be honest with you. Yes, he did. Okay.
Absolutely. But, you know, I think what it comes down to is, you know, we were not made for cannabis, but cannabis was made for us, right? And sometimes the picture gets muddled because people get stuck on the THC and the plant itself. And to be honest, the reason why we use cannabis is because we can harvest the most of these amazing terpenes and cannabinoids from it. But we can get that from other little places as well. And if you're really about the plant, you should be living the lifestyle of the plant. And as you know,
and what does that look like? What does that look like?
You know, like, oh, so Uwe and I were on a conversation this morning. So, you know,
so
we were having this
plant. So yeah, you pull me in on that one. So yeah. That's why I want to. Okay.
But and something that I often encourage my students is don't just depend on the plant, right? But if you really believe in what it offers, we were talking earlier this morning, you should be doing yoga because it excites your endocannabinoid system. And Uwe was sharing that turmeric and other, you know, black pepper and actually interacts with your endocannabinoid system. And, you know, he gave some other examples here. But if you're really about, like, even the terpenes, use some essential oils and use a diffuser. Like, if you're really about what this plant offers, live the lifestyle that the plant gives you and find those essential aspects of the plant and place it in little aspects of your diet and your lifestyle so that you get even a greater effect from the plant. So when someone says, oh, I have cannabis, I don't need anything else, I'm very much against that, because it is one incredible tool towards your wellness and your lifestyle, but you can pick up aspects of the plant in other ways in your life.
Amazing. You got me right there on the lifestyle. And I'm kind of stuck right there because I want to make it really plain for someone that is just not sure, but they're dealing with, again, they're maybe dealing with unable to sleep at night, or they or a diabetic, and they may I've heard, how the benefits of that. But as you're saying, what I just grabbed out of what you said is to also find out what other things that you can add to just the plant alone. Having the plant alone is not what you promote. Am I right about that?
Absolutely. It's more than, because to be honest, if you're too focused on the plant,
and get in the medical card.
Get a medical card. But if you're too focused on the plant alone, I think you can sometimes establish bad habits.
Yeah.
And so if you really are about what the plant offers, then you will be able to pick up some of the aspects of what the plant can provide in other aspects of your life. And that's really the conversation that Uwe and I had this morning. And in a lot of the things that what's really fascinating about his book is that he has this amazing research and details and dosing and how you can help people through the research that's out there. And then he switches to an affirmation.
Got it.
And he switches sometimes to a prayer, because what he offers in this book is the mind, body, and spirit of cannabis. And that's why he's here.
Yeah.
And
like,
that
I looked him up. I was like, oh, and I would do that with Frederica too, because I know she's powerful.
Yeah.
But that is so amazing. You all that are tuning in and listen, the results to have that full life. Amy was talking about the results of her son, the life that her son now has. I can relate. I have a grandson. He's kind of right there on, and he's only 8 now, but bordered on autism. And so I get it. I want to go ahead and bring on Gerald. You briefly, and so come on, your contribution to the book. We introduce yourself. And then we will be hearing from our sponsor, CTR Media Network. We are a part of the CTR Media Network, and our other sponsor, which is Harris International Business Strategist, Nadia Francois. And so if you will, come on.
It's on me?
Yeah, it's on you. Yes, if you will, come on and share a little bit about, if you want to add to the conversation, tell us your contribution, as you're talking about being,
Yeah, so Gerald Moore Jr., I wanted to be a part of the first book, but, as you can see, I'm a busy toddler dad right now. My wife and I also, we had a stillbirth last October, so we were dealing with that, the trauma of that and the grief of that. So I was excited to be a part of this book. I encouraged my friend Broderick to share his story in the first book, because that's really who, inspired me and educated me on more than just consuming cannabis. There was more ways and aspects to get cannabis into the system, whether it was topicals or, just the different forms. So for myself, I started consuming in high school, but it was really something just recreational.
You can bring him on. Go ahead and put him on your lap.
It was really just recreational, and being a high school kid, I had been told all the, horrible things about cannabis, but also, being a young Black man, I was being raised in a suburban, community, Prince George's County, one of the wealthiest Black suburbs in the country. And then I was going to private school, which was mainly Catholic schools, predominantly white institutions. And I was a well-known athlete. So my parents always made sure that I was well aware that I couldn't make mistakes, and that every mistake that I did make, could cost me, whether it was my career, my potential to, play Division I football, try out for the NFL. So I was very cautious. One of my god brother at the time, when I was in middle school, high school, his brother would come in high all the time. And so, you just see like, oh, he's just, funny, low eyes. So I never really thought anything of it. But once I started to consume, I realized that it relaxed me. It helped my body. I was already training very heavy. So, it really relaxed my body, helped me rest and sleep. And then I got to college at the Division I level, and I realized the majority of my teammates were consuming as well. And so the idea of cannabis being a gateway drug or all these other things really just kind of went out the window. But then I also began studying healthcare administration. So I was studying the healthcare system and what healthcare, the Western medicine, was really all about. Being a football player, we have team doctors. We can go get pretty much any prescription we wanted to. You tell the doctor that you're hurt, or you have a teammate getting a surgery. Everybody's always having injuries. So there's always drugs and, opioids, floating around the locker room. Obviously, being a college student, there's all types of, pharmaceuticals. You got everything. I went to the #1 party school in the country at one point in time. So you're seeing all of these different drugs, and I just realized cannabis was great for me. And the older I got, it was the one thing that I was able to consume that wasn't giving me, any type of, you don't have any overdose or anything like that. You don't have a hangover. So I really realized that cannabis was more so beneficial. And then now, I deal with arthritis, playing, I've played football since I was 7 years old. And so now I deal with, arthritis in my joints, my knees, my ankles, my wrists, fingers, and things like that. And I'm only 33, but I still like to work out. I still like to be active with my kids. So cannabis really has helped, ease some of that pain and tension. And then obviously we talk about CTE with football players. And so I've had a few concussions, but you think about the long-term impacts of that. And then we talk about the ability for cannabis to create some of those brain connections. So I really got, more so interested in the methodologies of that over time and how that would impact my life. So it's been a journey for me. It's been a learning journey. But, for being a football player, a lot of athletes don't necessarily talk about the pain that they're dealing with. They don't talk about, we're not trained to talk about what's going on outside the field of play. We're taught to suck things up perpetually because that's part of the sport, is who can basically deal with the most pain. Because everybody's dealing with something. When you're watching these guys play, guys are dealing with injuries. And so, I got Toradol shots in my ankle my senior year just to numb the ankle, just to play in a big time game, because at the end of the day, it's one of those things that, this game could be the game that puts me in the NFL, or this game could be the one that makes history for the university and puts me in that category. So you see what's going on. And so for me, like, a lot of athletes won't even talk about it. And now, they really can't, because if an NFL player comes out and talks about it, he could lose an endorsement deal, or, he'll have fans saying, well, you're my son's favorite player. You're supposed to be, this type of person. So you don't hear guys talking about it until really they retire from sports. So I really thought of it as a great opportunity to really share my story, but help other athletes create a platform. I started Athletes in Cannabis, where athletes could share their stories. And it's tough because as athletes, we're put on a pedestal very early. We're put in the limelight very early, and we're conditioned to be, politically correct. We're conditioned to be media savvy, so we don't talk about certain things. So cannabis was one of those things where it's like, it's hard to talk about because I've been so conditioned not to talk about it, and trained that if you do talk about it, you're going to be seen this is a character flaw. And so those are some of the things that I still have to deal with, even though now I'm talking about it more and more, because, you know, I've been conditioned in that way not to even talk about it. But then on the backside, you have the war on drugs, you have the 50 plus years of prohibition that have crushed our community. My grandfather was a cannabis grower, cannabis consumer, strong Black male, but he died a few years ago. And so it's like, what would my granddad's life have been like if he was able to consume this medicine, grow this medicine, be an entrepreneur, businessman in this field? You know, what would we have been able to do? So it's a very complex thing, but I also think cannabis is really at the intersection of a lot of the things that we deal with in our culture, society, and especially the African-American community.
Wow, you said a lot, and I would love to unpack some of what you were saying, because each of these authors that are in this book, those of you that are following Dr. Bridget and the incredible work that she is doing in our audience, I want to know how they can reach out. How they will be able to follow you, which is on Instagram, TikTok. Y'all can see Dr. Bridget on TikTok for sure, and Facebook. So when we are anticipating this amazing book to be released, Dr. Bridget?
So my goal is still like in late spring. I will tell you, you know, I kind of create this machine. And Sandy, I know you know the anthology machine, right? Like it's a nonstop train. Yeah. But it was really important to me that these stories were excellent. Yeah. And so I have, and it's such a different book, you know, between the sparks and getting these legacy stories, and the mom stories are so crucial because they literally give life to women that are sometimes struggling by themselves. We didn't have the athlete story before. So that was, I hunt, you know, Joe says he wanted to be in the book. I also hunted him down a little bit as well. Right. And so, and we have, you know, the one thing that was missing were the nurses. One thing last time was missing was the PTSD. Mm-hmm. And these stories are going to help people. So I'm really taking my time. We're doing a lot of editing so that we get the story across that that will really help people.
And that is great. So there's no rush. And that's the good thing. I'm loving this. I'm loving these conversations. You know, the door is always open here on Book Talks with Sandy for Dr. Bridget and this book. And so we're going to be on the edge of our seat. Our readers, the listeners and our audience, we are definitely going to be on the edge of our seat, waiting and anticipating and as it unfolds for us to be able to grab these stories. I want to pause for a moment and share our sponsor for the Book Talks with Sandy tour, the I Have a Story tour, and that is none other than Harris International Business Strategist, Nadia Francois.
Lady entrepreneurs, female business owners, this one's for you. The Fempreneur Society is now accepting members. This society is a networking group for fempreneurs to connect, build, and cultivate relationships to enhance their brand. The membership offers several opportunities for business growth, such as our weekly power call and clubhouse, our private Facebook group, retreats, networking mixers, and more. Join us today at www.fempreneurssociety.org/join.
Yes, that is business strategist Nadia Francois. So if you are looking for someone to work with you in your business and help you grow and evolve, yes, do reach out to Harris International business strategist Nadia Francois. Yes, indeed. So what I'd like to do, Dr. Bridget, now that we're definitely going to look at some more dates because I want you guys to come back. I would like for Uwe, let's go ahead and go there. If you can share with our audience, what would be one thing that would keep them, what would be the one takeaway that you would like for just a reader to take away after reading your forwarding or your information? Because you're not the forwarding, you're a featured author. And your forward author is the gentleman who is the CEO of the Tyson 2.0.
Right, Adam Wilks.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about him in just a moment. But Uwe, what would you like for us to walk away with?
A therapeutic cannabis experience gives us a map about how to reestablish and maintain balance. And while we may all need cannabis or specific cannabis constituents to bridge us over an acute event, if things become chronic, we need to learn how to relax in the middle of all the stress and all the pain and all the inflammation. And that is one of the core message of cannabis, its core function. When used properly, will induce a deep sense of relaxation. It will give us an uplift in mood. And when we're in that state, in that relaxed state, that is when healing happens. That's why a lot of healing happens at night, because we're relaxed. We're, we're just receiving it. And that is the most underrated yet most powerful aspect of working with cannabis that I wanted to perhaps leave you with.
That is great. I love it. Everything, relax. Learn to relax. That's what it is. Learn to relax.
And laugh.
And do what?
Laugh.
And laugh. Absolutely. Absolutely. That just brings back some memories. That's all we would do for me, y'all. I would just be honest and real with you. Be like, why is she laughing? Because she high as a kite. That's why. Listen, on my show, Dr. Bridget will tell you, I'm going to tell you about my day with smoking weed. Yes, indeed. I'm 62 years old, and I don't care. And my audience, yes. Yes, indeed. So anyway, moving right along. Yes, indeed. Dr. Bridget has enhanced my knowledge. So we talk about the THC, we talk about the hemp plant. And so yeah, thank you. And then I learned even some more things on last night. I'm really learning. I truly am. The relationship with the plant, that right there got me. I like that. So Frederica, if you will, come on, what would you like for our readers to walk away with?
I guess I would say just be open. Just be open. Especially when we're thinking about the stigma that still exists with cannabis. It's important for you to even be willing to receive what the possibilities are. And even if you decide that it's not for you, be open to the reality that it is for someone else. I think oftentimes when we say no, when we feel strongly about something that we don't want to do or that we want to do, we want to impose that on other people. Different strokes for different folks. If you decide it's not for you, weed is not for you, that's okay. That's okay. But it is for someone else. And that should be okay too.
Right. Here in the state of Mississippi, that's good. I'm looking forward to this conversation and continuing. And when Dr. Bridget does her tours that she'll be coming to the Gulf Coast, We are now, the state of Mississippi has made medical cannabis legal. And I mean, everyone was jumping after having the business, but there are a couple of individuals that I know that did the research. They did the research and wanted the community to be informed. And Dr. Bridget, I'll have to put her in contact with you. She's amazing. But that was one of the things, because there is, my knowledge is that when my pastor said, listen, and we're talking Black pastors, when he said, if there is something that is going to make a person feel better, he was all for it. He stood up, he encouraged our congregation. We went through a survey because we knew that there was a vote against a bill. There was a bill that had to be voted on and the whole thing before it went to Senate. And he shared his viewpoint. And his viewpoint was, and we're talking about someone in their 70s, very well known in the community, but shared his actual viewpoints. Why hold up something that will, such as Amy's son, or even as Gerald talks about in the sports world, we have had the stigma from way back in the 70s and 80s. Yeah, when we were getting high as a kite, and we would get fired if our urine was dirty, things to that nature, and that people are having to serve time, jail and prison, because of something small and minute, and now it's a legal item. So being educated, Dr. Bridget, is what you're doing as well. You're educating all communities, but we have been affected tremendously, potheads, just things like that, giving names. So I'm just really thankful for the, like you said, Frederica, is to be open. It may not be for you, but don't stop a mother, a caregiver, from being able to assist a parent so their last days cannot be in pain. So powerful. Amy, come on and share. What would be the one thing that you would like for me as a reader to walk away? And if there's anything else left on your heart, please feel free to share. What would you like for us to walk away with?
What I'd like you to walk away with is that cannabis can be a safe alternative. It can be an option. And I would like to give hope to other families that, have children with extreme behaviors and aggression, or cancer, epilepsy, some of these tough things to really deal with, and that they're, kind of scared to use pharmaceuticals, or they're finding that the side effects outweigh the benefits of those pharmaceuticals, that cannabis can be and is a safe option for them to try.
Yeah. As you were talking, and Dr. Bridget, I do this when it hits me. Did you ever find yourself sitting in the chair after going through in this experience and saying, you got a moment to breathe?
Yeah. It's definitely been a long journey, and the milestones that my son hits still brings me to tears, because I had kind of came to terms that we wouldn't hit these milestones, and so it really blows my mind on the things that he's able to experience, and that we're able to experience as a family, that we weren't able to for so many years.
Yeah. I did that intentionally because I know what my family goes through sometimes, and the teachers in the school, and my daughter, who's a single mom, who's in her 30s. And when the school calls and they give us these things that Ashton, they were afraid he was going to hurt himself because he wanted to run out the door. And so when just knowing that when you get to that point that you finally get a breakthrough, you can sit in the chair and take a deep breath. Inhale and exhale, like Uwe said, is to relax and know that someone's out there that will listen. Doctors like Dr. Bridget, somebody's got to listen, hear you, see you, And that's important. Those of you that are tuning in, we are about to wrap this up, but I want you to go back and listen to the replay in its fullness. You're going to be hearing from Dr. Bridget and the contributing authors. I'm going to go ahead and let you, Gerald, come on and speak. I hear my phone over there ringing, but yes, come on and share your point of what you would like for us to walk away with.
Yeah, I would say that it's time to end the stigma against cannabis, and it's time to, really humanize ourselves. As an athlete, you kind of feel inhumane. And so the more that I've gotten to know more people and work with older generations, younger generations, populations, you realize that we're at a crossroads right now in society where we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion and all these different things. Well, cannabis is one of the most diverse plants there is when you see the type of people that it's impacting. And so really come in with an open heart, open mind, and realize that we have to bring back humanity, right? Especially in the church. I feel like, as a young Black man, we kind of have been pushed out of the church, and everybody wants to, ask why. And it's like, well, cannabis makes me feel better, but if you're not going to accept me, if I'm trying to be a good human being, but this one thing is the thing that you're judging me on, and you're being very judgmental, which, we're in church, you ain't supposed to be doing that. Why would I be here? And so when you're seeing it from an older generation and it comes down on this younger generation, we're kind of at odds. So I would say, in the stigma, be open. And again, it's a lifestyle. Also, cannabis isn't always about just getting high. You know what I mean? It's about healing, but there's other forms, there's other methodologies. You have CBG, CBN, CBD, we have hemp, so we have to understand environmental, right? What is hemp going to do for the environment? There's so many different facets of the cannabis plant. So it's not just about getting high, so we have to really, I know we're focusing on that, but it's really so much bigger than that for our culture, our society, especially America right now.
You need to be hitting those stages, telling that story, opening up the eyes and the mind of people. I love it. I love it. Well, it is always our custom here on Book Talks with Sandy and Coffee Conversations. Whenever we do have a guest, we do yield back and allow our visionary author to share her heart and what she'd like to just say to our audience. You all, thank you so much again for tuning in to Book Talks with Sandy. You all go back and listen to the replay. Tag someone, put their name in, and just be looking out. We will be having Dr. Bridget and these contributing authors. There's over 40 of them. And so we're looking forward to this conversation continuing. We want to keep an open door here. All right. So listen, I'm going to yield back, and Dr. Bridget, if you will, come on and share your heart.
I'm in the midst of really digging in and editing these chapters right now. And the vulnerability, the love, the heart that people have put into these stories that I know are going to help so many people. And so I'm humbled by the authors and how they have come together to share their experiences, really only to help other people that are coming into this space, and to hopefully be an ear or a written word for someone that is struggling with some of the same things. So if this is interesting to you, if it's intriguing to you, definitely follow us on our Instagram, Courage and Can Books with 2 N's. Follow us on our Facebook page, Courage and Can Books as well. Follow some of these authors that they start expressing and sharing their experiences, because once you're a part of this book, you really can't get rid of me. And so this is a journey that I bring people into, and a family that I create around a plant that can heal and save lives. So definitely join us in our journey.
Awesome.
Oh, encouragingcannabis.com, brand new website.
Oh, okay. And let's I think I got it down in the, I have it. I think I have it in my banner. Let's go ahead and let's see, where is it? I think I got it. Yeah. Can we type that in? So I wanted our those that are listening to be able to catch that. But you did say it. It's
www.courageincannabis.com. It highlights every single author, has everything from book 1, has all the authors from book 2, shares a little bit about their bio, so you can really get to know and understand these amazing people and what they're sharing. And as always with the books, it gives an opportunity. if the book or if their chapter connects with you, you're able to connect with that author directly. And so learn about us as we're going through this journey, and hopefully it's meaningful to you as well.
Awesome. Yes, indeedy. Well, listen, we have had an amazing, amazing night. Thank you all. I want to thank Amy Carter, contributing author of Courage in Cannabis, Volume 2, Frederica Easley, who will be doing the Sparks. And so you definitely want to be looking out for that. And yes, Mr. Gerald Moore Jr., thank you so much for your contribution to the book. And the phenomenal Mr. Uwe Belsching. Yes, thank you so much, you all, for being our guests. Dr. Bridget, as always, we love you, support you. We're always here for you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for tuning in. And again, you all know that I love you. Be blessed. Yes, indeed. Thank you. Thank you for putting your website in there. You all have an amazing, amazing. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. Y'all have a blessed evening. Have a great evening. And we will talk to you soon. All right. Take care.